It's showtime, folks. Welcome in Chase and Big Joe special Sunday edition. I'm Chase McCabe. No Big Joe today, but don't worry. We have a great fill-in and Adam Vingan joining us. We're live, a special Sunday edition at the Hank Williams Jr. Boogie Bar, the rooftop in downtown Nashville, just steps away from Bridgestone Arena as the Predators get ready for game number 4 later on this afternoon. 4 o'clock puck drop, so get down here early. You can come hang out with us. Jared Stillman will have Stillman and Company from 1 to 3 after we're done. So we're taking you all the way up to the pregame show, and then Max Hers will take over at 3 o'clock. So a full day of Preds hockey and a discussion with all of you. You can weigh in 615-737-1025. That's our phone and text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Adam, what's up? Good to see you, my friend.
I'm glad to be here. Beautiful day here in Nashville. Should be a good game.
Yep.
Pivotal game. Predators need a win. Probably deserve to win on Friday night. Then again, the Canucks probably deserve to win in game 2, but That's just how this series has gone so far. But yes, head on down. It's a beautiful day here, and enjoy all the sights and sounds before game time at 4 o'clock.
I feel like that this series to this point, and it feels like this should be game 8. I mean, but this series has been a heavyweight fight.
Yes, has.
It has been, okay, one round goes to Vancouver. One round goes to the Preds. One round goes to Vancouver. You know, how will today go? But it has certainly felt that way. The intensity's picked up. Now they don't like each other. Yeah, I don't know if they liked each other going in, but now they don't like each other because you're 3 games into the series. So you got guys that are getting under other skins. And you're right, the Predators probably deserve to win on Friday, even though – I don't know. The vibe was off. The vibe was just off for whatever reason, and we'll get into some of the fan stuff and all of that later on. But it just watching them on the ice, something felt off. You know, once again, I felt like Forsberg was not as involved as he needed to be. Mm-hmm. The top line wasn't as involved as they needed to be. I know they got 30 shots on goal. You know, so do you credit Casey DeSmith? Do you credit Vancouver's defense? Is it a combination? But something felt off, but they were certainly in position all game long to win that. Luke Evangelista, who I think has actually had a pretty nice playoff, gets rewarded for all his hard work, scores a goal, makes it 2-1. And they had plenty of time, you know, to try and tie this thing up. Unfortunately, unable to get it done, and so Vancouver takes a 2-1 lead at a place where we kind of thought that the Predators were going to have their way coming back to Bridgestone Arena. It just didn't go that way.
Well, in game 2, the Canucks carried the play, and the Predators had 30 blocked shots, which was a season high.
Yep.
In game 3, the Predators controlled the play, and the Canucks had 28 blocked shots, which was a season high. So a lot of blocked shots, 58 combined, 30 for Nashville, 28 for Vancouver in game 3. I was about to do that math, but then I forgot about the other ones. Forget I did any math. But the point is, Nashville, 30 block shots in game 2, which was a season high. Vancouver, 28 block shots in game 3, which was a season high for the Canucks. So game 3 was the best the Predators have played in this series. I think that goes without saying. It was the closest to what we've seen from the Predators in the second half of the regular season. And when you play that well, typically you should win. The Canucks had 7 shots on goal at 5-on-5. 5-on-5 shots on goal in the game were 26-7 in favor of Nashville. If you have a significant edge in 5-on-5 shots on net like that, you should win.
Yeah.
But the Canucks did a great job blocking shots. Casey DeSmith was up to the task, and you know the Canucks were able to make the difference on special teams. That was the difference. The Canucks had 2 power play goals. The Predators went 0 for 5 on the power play. The Predators scored on the power play. Their first chance of the series in game 1 in the second period from Ryan O'Reilly. They are 0 for 12 since. The Canucks are doing a good job of preventing shots from getting through to DeSmith on the power play. And the Predators' power play was excellent in the second half of the season.
Yeah.
They were, I believe, 27.2% on the power play once they came back from their all-star break/bye week in mid-February. So the fact that they haven't been able to get anything going on special teams on the power play specifically is a bit of a problem. They had multiple opportunities, especially in that first period, where I think they had 3 power play opportunities to take control of the game, and they didn't. And the Canucks took advantage of their opportunities. First shot of the game on the power play, JT Miller scores, and that's the way it went. So, I mean, the Predators, there are reasons to feel good if you're the Predators about how you've played, and especially in Game 3, but you're still on the wrong end of the ledger.
Yeah, and look, I was hoping when we plan to do these special shows, we'd be talking about a win, Preds up 2-1. We're not. They're down 2-1. But this series is far from over. Like, this series, and you tell me if you agree or disagree, to this point has every indication that it's going 7. It feels that way.
It certainly does. The games, despite what the scoreboard has said in games 1 and 2 specifically, it has been a tight series. It took 2 goals in 12 seconds from Vancouver in Game 1 to blow it open. The Predators had 2 goals in a short span of time in Game 3 to take a commanding lead in that game, and that was an incredibly tight game in Game 3. So yes, it does feel like the pendulum can swing either way at this point. But I would be concerned as a Predators fan if they lose today.
Right.
I think it would be difficult to come back down from 3-1. I know I've mentioned this statistic. It's a cool. I mean, it's not cool if you're a Predators fan, but it's an interesting statistic that they've never won a playoff series when losing the first game. They're 0-12 in 7-game series, 0-1 in the 5-game series they played against Arizona in 2020. But this specific team, it will be difficult. I think if they go down 3-1, they would have to win 2 games in Vancouver. I think that would be hard. So. Yeah. This is not a must-win game because the Predators will still be alive if they win. They'll be down 3-1. But it's almost like what we saw last night. Toronto loses to Boston. They're down 3-1 in the series. I think the Maple Leafs are going to have an incredibly difficult time coming back to win that series. I think if the Predators fall down 3-1, I'm not saying it's over, but I think it's going to be very difficult for the Predators. So they need to be on their A game today.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think must win is overused.
Except if it's an elimination game. Then it is a must win.
Yeah, you got to win that one. But like today is definitely, again, I'll say the same thing I did coming back, when they were leaving Vancouver. Coming back to Nashville tied at 1 feels a lot different than coming back down 0-2.
Yes.
Just like going back to Vancouver tied at 2 is going to feel a lot different than being down 3-1. Mm-hmm. So, I feel like that they really, really need to do what they need to do to win this game. I'm curious of what the lineup is going to look like. Spencer Stastny gets hurt the other day. He's week to week with upper body, so he obviously will not be available. My guess is Dante Fabro, but do you consider, take aside everything that has kind of gone on this year, do you consider Tyson Barrie just because of the experience?
That's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is, what is Tyson Barrie's bread and butter? There's alliteration for you.
Yeah,
Tyson Barrie's bread and butter, I said it better the first time, is the power play.
Yeah.
He is a power play quarterback. If you are trying to get better on the power play, perhaps you consider Tyson Barrie in this spot. I mean, I would agree. My gut would tell me that it would be Dante Fabro coming in the lineup just because Barrie has been on the outside looking in for most of the season. But if you're looking for a power play ringer, that's what Tyson Barrie is. I mean, he was the power play quarterback for the number 1 unit in the league last season. Now, of course, that unit had Connor McDavid on it, so everyone looks good when you're playing on the power play with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. But Barrie had a big role in that Oilers power play being really good last season. So, I mean, I think Fabro is the answer, but if you're looking to get something going on the power play, I would consider Tyson Barrie. I really would.
I would too, and I'm going to be curious to what the Predators end up doing there if they end up giving him a chance with the forwards. We'll talk about this coming up next, and you can weigh in 615-737-1025. Could there be other lineup changes that Andrew Brunette makes? I can make a case for it. There's some guys that just, for whatever reason, they haven't gotten it going. So I could certainly make a case for it, but we'll discuss that coming up next and welcome your input as well. We're live today at Hank Williams Jr. Boogie Bar on the rooftop on Broadway. Chase McCabe, Adam Vingan with you. A special Sunday edition of the Chase and Big Joe Show here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Andrew, with the power play, I mean, it just seems like, are they doing something tactically that's throwing you guys off? I mean, some of the guys were saying that they're just not moving fast enough, but is there anything their penalty kill is doing that's just stifling that attack?
Well, they're doing a good job, obviously. They're trying to kill a penalty. I think it's not been tactical, I don't find. Obviously, they're very well prepared. They're very well coached on both, all over the place. And they've done a good job. I think we've a little bit our year, and a lot of the times our pace gets slow, and I think it's been slow all series, where we're looking for something a little different. We maybe stick handling a little too often, and so let's move it a little quicker and stick handle when you have more time. So little things. You didn't hate it, you don't love it. The results aren't there, but. They've, as a group, have found a way in big moments to snap it around pretty good and get a big goal or good big momentum, and it just hasn't happened yet this series.
That was the final boss, Andrew Brunette, head coach of the Nashville Predators, back in a special Sunday edition of the Chase and Big Joe Show. Adam Vingan alongside me today. We're live at the Hank Williams Jr. Boogie Bar, the Rooftop, here on Broadway, 419 Broadway to be exact. And we're taking you up to a special edition of Stillman and Company. He'll be on 1 to 3. And then Max Hers with the pregame show starting at 3 o'clock. So that was him on the power play. And we were just talking about that do you view it as, is it something Vancouver's just doing tactically that is working, or is it just puck luck or a mix of everything?
Yeah, I think it's a mix of everything, and let's give credit to the Canucks penalty kill, even if you include the final 4 regular season games. So their past 7 games, the final 4 games of the regular season, and the 3 games in the playoffs. I believe they are 25 for their past 26 on the penalty kill. So their penalty kill is humming along right now. This is not a weak unit that's suddenly finding some good penalty killing. They've been in this groove now for a few weeks. So the fact that that the Predators have fallen victim to that penalty kill is not a surprise. But as Andrew Brunette has said, when I think about that one goal that the Predators have scored on the power play in this series, it was a lot of quick puck movement. I think it was Nyquist off the wall to Forsberg to O'Reilly, or it might have been Forsberg off the wall to Nyquist to O'Reilly. But either way, it was very quick movement. O'Reilly was in a good position to shoot, had an open look at Casey DeSmith, and scored. I feel like when they're not playing well in the power play, they're a little too calculated. Like you can't look for that perfect play, and oftentimes when things don't go well, you sometimes look for that perfect play. And maybe that's what some of the Predators have been doing recently. But the Canucks power play has been in a groove now for a few weeks. So they've carried over their strong end of the regular season into the postseason. So they've run into a really good penalty kill. But this power play has been good for the past couple of months. So you hope that it emerges today, because that made the difference. If the Predators score one or two of those power plays in the first period, we might be talking about a different game. And the Canucks get their opportunities and they capitalize. So it's easy to point to that as the main difference in Game 3, which is why the Predators need to be better on the power play in Game 4.
So if you're Andrew Brunette, here's our question now. We know that Stastny is coming out. You're going to put either Barrie or Fabro in on the defensive side. Do you make some lineup changes with the forwards? Tommy Novak has, for whatever reason, Tommy Novak has not gotten it going, and he's even talked about that.
Yeah, it's a good question, because this is Tommy Novak is a good example of the eye test versus the analytics.
Yeah,
because the analytics would say that Tommy Novak has actually performed well this postseason, particularly in terms of the chances that the Predators have generated when he's on the ice. They've had the better of play. That's what the analytics say.
Sure.
The eye test, he hasn't stood out. And if he has stood out, it's because he hasn't been making the same impact that he made during the regular season. So, lineup changes are always tricky in the postseason. You don't want to. I mean, obviously,
you don't want to chase it,
right? Obviously, with the injury to Spencer Stastny, you don't want. You have to make a lineup change. But in the case of Vancouver in Game 2, Tyler Myers was ill. So they had to put in Noah Juleson, and they put Tyler Myers back in for Game 3. So you have to be careful. I know that they've recalled Juuso Parssinen. That might be a play there if you want to play Parssinen with, instead of Novak.
I'd want to see Glass before.
Or Glass.
Yeah.
Either one. You just have to be careful. You don't want to upset the apple cart, so to speak. But Novak has not had the impact that you would have hoped he would have offensively in this series, and sometimes that happens when you're playing in the Stanley Cup playoffs for the first time. Now, the counter-argument to that, to your point earlier, Chase, is that Luke Evangelista seems to have taken to the Stanley Cup playoffs like a duck to water.
Yeah, he has.
So it's different for every player, but I think Novak might be overthinking it a little bit. So, Cody Glass, more of an experienced player. Juuso Parssinen was supposed to have a more significant role in this team at the start of the season. I do wonder if Andrew Brunette makes a change there, but I think you have to be careful about how you go about that. As you said, you don't want to chase it.
Our buddy Jeremy K. Gover tweeted this morning, lineup changes I'd like to see the Preds make for Game 4 this afternoon. He says out, Novak, Jankowski, and then obviously Stastny. In, Glass, Parson, and Barry.
Okay.
I'm not sure two forwards are coming out.
No, I don't think so either.
And do you put Beauvillier in that, or I think he's been okay. I kind of like.
I'd keep Beauvillier.
Yeah, I feel like you're getting what you wanted out of Zucker and Beauvillier when you acquired them.
I think that if you're going to make lineup changes, it needs to be. You're taking out Novak, for example, and you're putting in Glass where Novak was going to play.
Right.
You don't want to switch everything up. So, does that mean you're putting in Glass with Jankowski and Evangelista? Like, just you're taking out Novak and you're plopping Cody Glass, and you're not putting Cody Glass and then moving somebody here and moving somebody there. I think that's too much movement.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've liked what I've seen from the Citizens line with Zucker and Beauvillier. Zucker's been good in this series.
Yeah, I agree.
Zucker has made some important plays in this series. I believe he has a point in every game, if I'm not mistaken. And here you go. Here's your fancy. Well, it's not fancy, but here's your stat. Speaking of Jason Zucker, he can become the 6th player in Predators history to open a postseason with a 4-game point streak.
Oh wow.
He would join Ryan Johansson, Austin Watson, Philip Forsberg, Colton Sissons, and J.P. Dumont. So that's an interesting.
There's a list.
That's an yeah. That's quite the list there.
Some of these are unlike the other.
Yeah, right. But I think Zucker. This is why you acquired Jason Zucker, and I like how he's played with Colton Sissons, and I think Beauvillier's had a decent series. So yeah, it would be simply taking Novak out if that's the case, and putting in Cody Glass, let's say, where Novak was, and not changing anything else.
Yeah, I used this term earlier. There is something to be said about chasing the lineup, and I feel like Andrew Brunette's kind of alluded to that. When he's talked about it, that hey, I'm going to look at things, but you kind of go with what you got, and yes, you don't have a lot of time for it to work, and so you might have to make some changes, but you don't chase the lineup because something that just isn't working yet. It's almost like using the baseball analogy. That you got to let the pitcher work through it sometimes. And so, while I won't be surprised, I wouldn't be shocked if Cody Glass is in today. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be shocked by that. If they took Novak out and put Glass in, that's not going to surprise me. And then obviously the defensive change that they're going to have to make. But I don't think it's going to be a whole lot. No,
I don't. You're not in panic mode. It's still a 2-1 series. If you were down 3-0 or 3-1 and you were making a move in an attempt to shake things up, you could justify that. Down 2-1, you're at home. You don't need to go crazy. You're going to put in someone else for Spencer Stastny. You might make a change in forward, but I would not go crazy with the lineup changes. And I'm not expecting Andrew Brunette to do that. I'm just saying that in this situation, you're still very much in this series. It's not like you need to push all of your chips in, so to speak, because if you don't win, you're out. So I think keeping it simple is key here.
I agree. He's Adam Vingan, Chase McKay with you, 615-737-1025. It's our phone and text line driven by WilsonCountyHonda.com. You can call or text and weigh in with us, a special edition of the Chase and Big Joe Show today as we talk about game number 4 with the Predators. So overall, though, we talked about this being a heavyweight fight. I don't feel like we have seen the absolute best from either team yet. Is that fair?
Yeah,
I feel like there's another gear for both Vancouver and Nashville.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, there are players on both sides. There are key players on both sides who I feel have not made their presence known in this series. First of all, on the opposite end of that spectrum, if you're asking me who the best player has been in this series, on either side, hands down, it's JT Miller.
Yeah,
JT Miller has been the most noticeable player, especially for Vancouver. But he has been the best player, I think, on the ice for both teams, skater-wise. The one, I think Elias Pettersson has not had a great series.
Yep,
He's fighting
I agree.
it. Quinn Hughes has 4 points in the series, all assists, but he hasn't been spectacular yet. The one guy I'm looking for on the Predator side who really needs to step up his game is Roman Josi.
I would agree.
I mean, he had 3 shots on goal in game 3. He had 11 attempts. He had 8 blocked shots. 8 of his attempts were blocked. So he had 11 attempts, 3 on net. When this team was rolling in the second half of the season, he was the catalyst offensively. And that's not a shock. He's been the catalyst offensively for years. But when the awards, when the voting totals for the NHL awards come out in June, and the voting totals for the Hart Trophy come out for MVP, there are going to be plenty of votes for Roman Josi for MVP. He's not going to be a finalist, but there are going to be a lot of people who put Roman Josi on their MVP ballot because of how he played down the stretch. He was outstanding.
Yeah.
And I just feel I haven't felt him in this series. And I mean, to me, the matchup within the matchup in the series was going to be Hughes and Josi because, in my opinion, they are the 2 most dynamic defensemen in the league. And the way that they're able to carry their teams when they're at their best. And as I said, the Canucks have been able to get by without Hughes being that player so far. And I mean, and Josi, he has so much more to give. And I just think that if this team has any chance of not just winning the series, but going further in the playoffs, they need the Roman Josi who was averaging 1.5 points over the second, I think since Christmas. Since they came back from the Christmas break in late December, he was averaging like 1.2 points per game. They need that Roman Josi. They have not had that Roman Josi in this series, and it doesn't all come down to one player, but he's an incredibly important player. And if they're not going to get that from him, they're going to have a hard time winning.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll make the argument for Forsberg too. I mean, you need Josi and Forsberg to be those guys.
At least, but yes, I agree. At least you had Forsberg have his game too. You had he had that goal. He stepped up there. I thought that UC Saros bounced back after a struggle in game 1 and had a solid game 2. When the shots did get through to him, he was there to make the saves. But yeah, Roman Josi, first and foremost, needs to elevate his game. We know he can do it. We've seen him do it for a long time. But that point streak in the regular season does not happen without Roman Josi, and this team does not win a playoff series without him either. So I need to see more from him, absolutely.
We are live today at Hank Williams Jr. Boogie Bar on the rooftop on Broadway, 419 Broadway. You can come down here, and it's a beautiful view here on the rooftop. But they got crafted cocktails. Enjoy handcrafted cocktails made with premium spirits and fresh ingredients. Taste Nashville with our menu featuring Southern classics with a modern twist. All that and so much more at Hank Williams Jr. Boogie Bar. And again, we're on the rooftop. We'll be here until 3 o'clock. Later today, so come by and see us. Coming up next, there was another matchup that I was looking forward to with this series, and I'm curious of Adam's thoughts on that to this point. It's the Chase and Big Joe Show with Adam Vingan here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Jason Big Show, 102.5, 106.3, The Game with Adam Vingan in today's special Sunday edition live at the Hank Williams Jr. Boogie Bar. We're on the rooftop. We'll be here until 1. Then Jared Stillman will take over and go 1 to 3, leading into Max Hers and the Lee Company Nashville Predators pregame show live at Bridgestone Arena. So I alluded to this. There was a matchup that, Adam, I was very excited about going into this series, and it was not the players on the ice. It was the coaches, because you had who's probably going to win the Jack Adams Award in Rick Tocchet, and then Andrew Brunette, who probably should be second to Rick Tocchet for the best coach of the year. Two guys that played a long time in the National Hockey League. I feel like they think the same way. They're very, they're players. They go at it like that.
Former teammates.
Yeah, you're right. Former teammates. So I was very, very curious of the coaching matchup in this one. I know Tocchet has more head coaching experience than Andrew Brunette does, but what have you thought about the coaching matchup to this point?
Yeah, it's a good question because I am not an X's and O's expert by any stretch of the imagination. But as you said, Rick Tocchet is probably the favorite to win the Jack Adams Award as the top coach in the NHL, and it would not shock me in the slightest if Andrew Brunette was a finalist. I believe he deserves to be a finalist, and I think that they've played off each other well in this series. When you just look at the way the series has gone, as I said earlier, it's a tight series. In terms of the things that are important to winning games. I mean, for example, the Predators, in terms of shots from the slot that get on net, that's an important indicator of success. At 5-on-5, the Predators have a 26-16 edge in slot shots on net at 5-on-5 in this series. Holding your opponent to, what's that, 16 divided by 3, it's like 5-something. 5 slot shots on net per game at 5-on-5. That's pretty darn good.
There's too much math.
There is too much
I was
math.
told there'd be no math.
Yeah, I know. Sorry about that. But, yeah, I think, for me, when the Predators hired Brunette, this is taking it in a little bit of a different direction. When the Predators hired Brunette, I was a bit skeptical of Brunette as a coach. And the reason why was he did have 75 games of head coaching experience as the interim coach in Florida a few years ago when they won the President's Trophy. And that's incredibly impressive. But he also had the team that won the President's Trophy, who, if I'm not mistaken, is the highest scoring team in the salary cap era, which is since 2005. He had a loaded team. It wouldn't have been difficult for most coaches to get a lot out of that team. So I was curious about whether or not he would come here with a less talented roster and be able to get as much out of them as he has. So he's proven me wrong in that respect. So, Brunette, how many is this his? I guess this would have been his second playoff series. I can't remember how many.
Third. Because he had 2 with Florida.
Okay,
right?
so this is his third playoff series. Tocchet has been through the battles, man. Not just as an assistant, not just as a head coach, but an assistant coach. Remember, Rick Tocchet, an assistant coach for the Pittsburgh Penguins when the Penguins won the Stanley Cup against the Predators in 2017. So Tocquet's experience is lengthy.
I love Rick Tocchet, though.
He's a very good coach. He's a very good coach, and you could tell at the end of last season when he came in, replaced Bruce Boudreau as coach of the Canucks. They had a really strong finish to the season, so the foundation was there. So you could look. Nobody expected the Canucks to be this good, just like no one expected the Predators to make the playoffs.
Sure.
Nobody expected the Canucks to win their division and be one of the best teams in the league. You saw the makings of it at the end of last season when he took over the Canucks, and then he got off to a great start and held on. They were a bit up and down in the second half, but they got off to an amazing start. So, yeah, I mean, there is no shame in losing a tactical battle with Rick Tocchet. He's a very good coach. But I think Brunette has proven that he is a good coach this year as well. So I think it's a fascinating matchup. I'm sure that's not the answer that you were looking for, but I would be BSing you if I was let's look at X's and O's here and X's and O's there.
Give me the answer that you feel is best.
So,
I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but and it's interesting because I don't think people always think about your time as an assistant coach and how important that is. Mm-hmm. And Brunette obviously has gotten his as well, but I mean, I think you look at New Jersey, and the fact that they regressed this year, there's probably something to be said for Andrew Burnett being gone. I mean, that with some of the talent they have.
Yeah, for sure. And also, Rick Tocchet behind the bench for the Coyotes in 2020 when they beat the Predators in the qualifying round in the bubble. So he's beaten the Predators in the playoffs before.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, if you were to tell me that these two coaches in this series are the best two coaches in the league this year, it wouldn't. I would totally believe it.
Yeah.
An argument could absolutely be made that you're looking at the best two coaches this season for sure.
Yeah, I agree. And so now it just kind of becomes with, no matter what happens the rest of the way in this series, Benjamin kind of leads into my next point. Benjamin on our text line says, just now tuning in, does it seem the team is looking for a perfect shot each time? I would think with DeSmith playing, you just put it on net as much as possible and make it a dirty game in front of the net. Has the size of the Canucks limited that?
That is a good question. I mean, I think to the DeSmith point, that's a solid point, because think about the goal that they scored to open Game 2. It was just Philip Forsberg throwing the puck toward the net. Anthony Beauvillier was there.
And he tipped
DeSmith was going one way. The puck went the other. It was an early goal. It was good to get a goal early against DeSmith in general, but I liked the way it was scored. It wasn't like a pretty play. It was just a fluky goal. And I thought that's exactly the type of goal that they needed to score in that game early to get DeSmith maybe off of his game a little bit. If you score a tic-tac-toe goal, a goalie can say, hey, man, there's only so much I can do.
Sure.
On such an innocent shot like that, the chances of it going in were probably really low. Excuse me. That changes a goalie's mindset. So I thought that was an important way to score. But, yeah, think about the goals they scored, Forsberg's goal, then Sisson's goal shortly thereafter. There was nothing pretty about any of it. It was just attacking Casey DeSmith. And Casey DeSmith is not, your average backup goaltender, in the fact that he's not coming into the series cold, because Thatcher Demko was injured near the end of the regular season, and DeSmith started the majority of the games when Demko was out of the lineup. So he's had plenty of reps over the past month. So it's not like Demko's been carrying the load. This is not like in 2018 when the Avalanche had multiple. They had, I think, Varlamov was injured, and then Jonathan Bernier was injured. I think that was the other goalie.
Yeah.
So they had Andrew Hammond, their third goaltender, who won a game here, by the way.
Yeah.
But he had their third goaltender in. He came in cold. He did have a really good game in Game 5 to extend the series, and then they kicked his butt in Game 6. So this is not like that. DeSmith has had plenty of reps lately, but he's not Thatcher Demko. He's not an all-star goalie. I mean, Demko could be a Vezina Trophy finalist. DeSmith had a good game the other night, but he's not that. I think it is important to just get to him early, just like they did in Game 2. The way they scored in Game 2 was the perfect way to score to start that game against the backup goaltender. They need that.
I agree with you, but the other thing, too, is, and I'm not saying that they have done this, but I feel like, you listen to fans, like a lot of times, you hear that, Demko's out, DeSmith is in. We got this now. Okay, cool. They're going to their backup goalie. Just because they're the second goaltender, the backup goalie, does not mean they're garbage.
No.
And Casey DeSmith, like you made an excellent point. He's not garbage. He's not Thatcher Demko, but he's obviously been good enough to win a game in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Now, we'll see what happens today, because I'm sure that that's something that the Predators have been discussing, when they've been meeting and practicing over the course of the last few days of, all right, here's what we were doing. This wasn't working. We need to change this. Looking at some of DeSmith's tendencies and all of that. But he's no slouch by any means. And so you have to attack it that way. So I understand like what Benjamin's saying. It's a great question. And as for the perfect shot, I do think they try to do that too much. Like I see, you remember this from the Peter Laviolette days when the power play would be great, and then we'd be talking about what's going on with the power play, and it was too much cycling the puck looking for Forsberg or Yossi or whoever to have the perfect shot. I do feel like I see a little bit of that now.
Yeah, and that happens when you're not getting the goal production that you're used to getting.
Yeah.
And the Predators didn't have a lot of problems scoring goals in the second half of the season.
No.
So that's
up and down the lineup.
Yeah, that's natural. It's natural. But yeah, I think with DeSmith, you know, when you have, like I just said, when you have a backup goaltender in there, a goaltender who has not been as tested, though he's been in the league now for several years, it's important to get to him early. Like, if the Predators, as I said before, if the Predators would have scored on the power play on one of their early chances, and I'm not saying that's a dagger by any stretch of the imagination, but it changes probably changes the trajectory of the game a little bit. So absolutely, I think it's important. They got dangerous looks on DeSmith. They just weren't consistent enough. As our personal text line blows up, very clever Jared, who will be here at 1 o'clock.
Jared says DeSmith sucks.
Yes. Oh God!
You can't help
That's the type of analysis you can look forward to starting at 1 o'clock
Yes.
here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. I'm coughing because I'm laughing so hard.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, I think it's important just to get to him early. I mean,
Put the puck on the net.
Yes.
I mean, it sounds so simple, but I mean that's what it has to be. You got to put the puck on the net. You put the puck on the net, good things happen. And just like you mentioned that first goal in Game 2, that Forsberg's just like, hey, I'm just going to throw it on and see what happens, and it ends up going in. I do think that there are times where, and here's all the hockey analogies coming out, you grip the stick too tight, all those things, looking for the absolute perfect shot, and it may just not be there. Just throw it on net and then let some of the guys in front. That's how they were scoring, a lot of those goals the second half of the season. They weren't all pretty. It was guys in the dirty areas just getting it done. So that's the kind of game that I think they're going to have to rely on today. And my guess is that's what you're going to see. I have that feeling going into this game that I did Game 2 of the Predators are probably going to look a little looser. Maybe they seemed a little uptight to start, coming back home, all those things. They're going to play a little looser, and my guess is they're going to tie the series up today. That's just kind of the feeling that I have, and that's the feeling that I've had with this series, that it's just kind of a back-and-forth heavyweight fight.
and as they say in the business, that's not a prediction. That's a spoiler.
That's a spoiler. Yes, Paul Heyman. 615-737-1025 is our phone and text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. We'll talk about just the atmosphere coming up next, because Friday, there's just a weird day. There's a lot going on downtown. I thought the vibe was off just a little bit. We'll discuss that coming up next. Chase and Big Joe. Adam Vingan in today, 102.5, 106.3. The Game. We're live at Hank Williams Jr. Boogie Bar on the rooftop. Come by and see us before the game. It's a great place to hang out if you're going to a Predators game. They have all the cocktails. They have live music here, intimate atmosphere, whether it's with friends or a date night. It's a cozy space that sets the mood, and they have exclusive cocktails for a memorable experience. Come by and see them. We're live today all the way until 3 o'clock, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Chasing Big Joe, 102.5, 106.3, The Game here on this Sunday, a special Sunday edition of the show. Adam Vingan with me today as Big Joe is doing Big Joe things. But the atmosphere Friday and, the playoffs and everything, I'm curious of your thoughts. I know it was a little different. Colby Calais did the national anthem, which was really cool. Didn't have a towel waiver this time, which I thought was a little different. Used to kind of seeing that. That's part of the experience is, okay, who's the anthem, who's the towel waiver. Didn't have that. No more Run This Town. Changed it up. Now, I know there was the whole thing with the U2 song, and that was the goal song of the Canucks, and fans are a little upset about that. But, I've seen tweets and everything of everybody going oh, the game ops ruined it, set the mood off, and that's why the Predators lost. I'm not going to go that far. Come on. Game ops did not lose the game. So, game ops did not go 0 for 3 on the power play. So, I'm not gonna do that. But it did seem, and listen, it took me an hour to get from the interstate to Bridgestone Arena on Friday. Traffic was an absolute mess because of the marathon, and they had the streets closed. Obviously, there's not much you can do there unless you move the marathon in anticipation every year that the Predators are going to be in the playoffs, which they've made, 8 of the last 9. So maybe that's not a bad idea. I don't know. But it is what it is. So it's kind of a late arriving crowd. So things did kind of feel a little bit off. And I know talking to people that were in Vancouver that were expecting it to be kind of a Nashville playoff atmosphere of old, they just didn't quite feel like it was.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to, I remember, no, it was a different situation, but I remember games 3 and 4 in the postseason 2 years ago against the Colorado Avalanche. Now, they were down 2-0 in the series. They were the heavy underdog. No one expected them to really make it a series, but it got loud when warranted. When it was necessary to be loud, it got loud, but it wasn't loud by default. And you're right. There were extenuating circumstances the other night because of the traffic. Look, it took me. I live in East Nashville, so I don't live very far from downtown. It took me 35, somewhere between 30 and 40 minutes to get from my house to the parking lot on 3rd Avenue, just because of how congested it was downtown. And
right.
When the game started, there were empty seats, but it was because it was hard for people to get in, and it filled in. It wasn't like an issue of them not selling tickets or anything like that, but it does feel like it does feel different. The important thing to note when I'm talking about this is that, I'm not around as much as I used to be. I have attended, the game I did on Friday was the 3rd Predators game that I have been to since the start of last season. I went to 1 regular season game last season, 1 regular season game this season, and then this game. So just 3 games. So it's, my frame of reference is from the glory days, so to speak. And, it was loud when it needed to be, but it didn't feel any much different than an important regular season game. I think Alex Doherty made that point on Twitter, that it felt like the game against St. Louis a few weeks ago, which was an important game, but it was a regular season game. And I wonder about, there are a lot of factors into it, but I do think that it's important to change things up, and the Predators were at the forefront of a lot of really important game ops things. I feel like they were trendsetters in a lot of ways, and I feel like perhaps they've kind of gotten stuck in those ways, and they haven't evolved, since the heyday of the franchise when they were making the postseason every year and going to the Stanley Cup Final and winning the President's Trophy and all of that. So, I'm probably the wrong guy to ask, even though I have several years of reference to look back on, just not recently. But yeah, it's definitely not the way it was 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018. And I feel like that's natural, but it's not. It's definitely not the same. The vibe inside the arena.
No, it's not. And without getting too deep in the weeds on this stuff, because I'm not in those meetings. I look at it from, I run the flagship station, and I have to do what, we do, and we're doing special coverage today, and people might ask, why we just had a texter. Why are you doing 4 hours into the pregame? Well, because we want to, because it's a big home game. And as the flagship Predator, the station of the Predators, I feel like it's our responsibility to do that. And there's a lot of people that are listening, driving around, that want to weigh in, and especially when they're coming into the game. And so we offer that is because we have the airspace to do it. With them, they've been doing this for 25 years. I do think that there's some traditions that happen just naturally, like, using Run This Town, which was actually not a playoff thing originally. It was a regular season video, but it was the first year that Shea Weber was the captain, and so people remember it. And then they used it again in the playoffs, and then it kind of became the playoff anthem. I'm not in those discussions. It's not me to decide. I liked it. I personally probably wouldn't have changed it, but they decided to change it, and that's their prerogative to do that. And my guess is a majority of the people didn't even notice. It's the loud minority that you always have to deal with, and so them changing the video song did not change the game. You can think it did, but it didn't. Whether there's a towel wave or not or what have you. Now, I will say this. I did see a tweet, thanks to Ricky for sending it to me. Taylor Lewan said, might need a catfish today. Can't say why. Can anyone get me a catfish ASAP? So I don't know what that could be alluding to.
He's hungry.
Maybe he's hungry. But at the same time, we all remember that moment. And you can't recreate that moment. Like, you can have him back, and you can have, maybe they'll have the new line. Always have that. Mm-hmm. So I think the hard part for just like us as a radio station, when these moments happen, of finding what the next moment is and creating the next moment, and that's what the game ops is trying to do. And it's an incredibly difficult job. So you have to have a lot of that stuff has to happen naturally, and sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. But, the U2 thing, I obviously knew where they were going with that, playing U2, maybe pick a different song. But I'm not going to blame. I think there were a lot of different factors that went into that. My guess is, with it being a Sunday 4 o'clock, it's going to be an even better vibe.
Yeah, I would think so. And, if you want to come down here to Hank's Boogie Bar on 419 Broadway and enjoy yourself a few hours before the game, I'm sure many people will take advantage of that and be nice and ready for Game 4. But yeah, I think I think this is not an indictment of the passion of the fan base at all. Because
I can tell you, after being in traffic for an hour on Friday and, getting into the building because it was such a backup, it was kind of a little bit of a cluster getting in the building, I was in a mood. And so at the beginning of the game when they were doing all that, it just – I wasn't feeling it either. So I'm sure there were a lot of people that were kind of in the same boat.
Yeah, who likes being stuck in traffic?
Yeah, nobody.
Especially when it takes you 20 minutes to go like a quarter of a mile or whatever it is. Everybody's angry. So marathon's over. It's Sunday. Hopefully you won't have a problem getting down here. If you're heading down here now, that's great because I coasted right in because we got here early. So get down here, enjoy the day, smash that car over there a little bit.
Have the smash car.
Yeah, have some fun. But yeah, I think it'll be better today. But it's easy to compare it to what it was at its peak and be disappointed, but it's a different time. It's a different, the organization is in transition, and sometimes that also extends to the fan base, and it's always it's up and down. So I mean, it wasn't ear-shattering loud like it was at its peak, but it was. I didn't leave that building thinking that Predators fans didn't do their part.
Right, and if you want it louder, if you want a better experience like that, then guess what? Then it's up to you. It's up to the fans, and I think the fans will take it up a notch today for game number 4. We're live today at Hank Williams Jr. Boogie Bar, 419 Broadway, as Adam mentioned, just steps away from Bridgestone Arena. They got a lot of different things here, including happy hour specials. Enjoy great deals on drinks and appetizers during happy hour. Also, they're open late, so if you're down here on Broadway, if you hang out after the game, you can come in as well. And by the way, for all you influencers out there, they have great Instagram-worthy places for you to take a photo, and there are a few, including the backdrop of downtown.
Do people still say influencer? Is that
I guess.
Is that still a
I don't
thing?
know. I'm just, I'm not cool, so I don't know. But he's Adam Vingan hanging out today. We're on until 1 o'clock, and then Jared Stillman will take over with a special edition of Stillman and Company. You can weigh in 615-737-1025. Chasing Big Joe with Adam, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Hour number 2, special Sunday edition of the Chasing Big Joe Show. Chase McCabe and Adam Vingan with you. Hank Williams Jr. Boogie Bar, 419 Broadway. We're right here downtown, right next to Bridgestone Arena. So if you're headed down early, come on by, see us. We're on the rooftop. Got a nice little crowd that has built here on the roof, and it's a beautiful view, and it's a beautiful day. Little breeze in the air, sunshine. You know, this is let's see.
Playoff weather.
It's playoff weather, and is it real spring or fake summer? I would almost put this in the fake summer category here in Nashville, Tennessee, because, you know, we have about 7 seasons, and you get about 6 of them in 1 week. So that's how we have the old phrase around here of, you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes, it'll change, because that's pretty much what it is. But Adam is alongside. We're discussing the Predators and the Canucks. Game number 4 coming up 4 o'clock this afternoon. That's the puck drop. So keep that in mind, too. 4 o'clock puck drop. Max Hers will have the pregame for you at 3. Jared Stillman will be going 1 to 3 with a special edition of his show. So we are packed and stacked with Predators coverage going into today. And, you know, this series, we started off the show talking about this, has felt like a heavyweight fight. Mm-hmm. And I think it's been an entertaining series, but I also feel like today could be the day where it goes up a notch. Because I think the Predators, while I'm not using the phrase must win, they need to win this game. I think that's the fair phrase to use, is need to win to go back to Vancouver for a Game 5 with the series tied at 2. You would also guarantee a Game 6 with a win today that would come back here to Bridgestone Arena. So I think they need to win that, but also give themselves a little bit of a confidence boost. But I feel like this team's going to come out swinging today. Maybe be a little pissed off for greatness just because of the way things went the other night. You said it, that they probably deserved to win the other night, even though the score did not go their way, and it was a 2-1 Vancouver victory.
Yeah, they absolutely, they'll absolutely need to be better tonight. Well, I mean, really, how much better could they have been? You know, they did a really good job getting pucks toward the net. You know, the Canucks were great at blocking shots, just like the Predators were great at blocking shots in game number 2. So they need to find a way around that in game 4 and make those adjustments. So, yeah, as I said earlier, this is not a must-win game because the Predators are not eliminated if they lose. But historically, a team that goes down 3-1, your chances of winning the series drop exponentially.
Yeah.
Especially when you're the road team and you have to win 2 of 3 in Vancouver in this particular case in order to do so. So, I think the Predators will play with that urgency, try to knock this series back up at 2, try to win another game in Vancouver. But first things first, I think there's a lot to like about the way they played in game number 3, particularly at 5-on-5. Of course, the power play needs to be better. And if they can do that, get to DeSmith a little bit like we talked about just recently, I think it's important for them to make him a little bit more uncomfortable, get around the shot blockers of the Canucks and get pucks toward Casey DeSmith, because I feel like at times when he's had to make saves, he hasn't looked like super comfortable doing it.
Yeah, right.
And I think that's the key. We talked about earlier the first goal of the game in game number 2, that fluky goal by Anthony Beauvillier. Like, that's the kind of goal you need right off the hop. Just get into the goalie's head a little bit and then attack. So, yeah, I anticipate a highly motivated Predators team because they know what's at stake in this game.
What's been your evaluation? We've talked about Casey DeSmith. What's been your evaluation of UC Saros in 3 games?
He did not have a good game in game number 1.
No, game 1 was definitely not good.
I don't. There was a terrible defensive breakdown. Was it on Dakota Joshua's goal, I believe, which was the second of the 2 goals. So I don't blame him for that. I mean, if you get that open look, not very many goalies are going to be able to stop it. I thought he was much better in game 2. And I thought he was okay in game 3. I mean, the 2 goals that he gave up were on the power play. You'd like him to make those saves, obviously, but they were good plays by JT Miller and to score the goal. And then he had a great setup for Brock Besser right in front for the second goal. So you'd like to see more. Better penalty killing play, of course, but. I mean, by and large, I think Saros has been fine. I mean, the thing that's been the issue for him, and it's been an issue for him this season, which is funny because it wasn't an issue for him last season, was he's not great at stopping shots when he can't see it. Now that seems self-explanatory, but I crunched these numbers before the series. there were 72 goalies who started 10 games in who started 10 games in the regular season, at least 10 games. Saros was 63rd out of 72 in his save percentage on shots on net that were screened, and he was he was much better at it last year. I think he had like an 863 save percentage. Last year was over 91. So a big drop off there.
Is that the size? Is that just?
I mean, that's
just something he can't handle.
Right. Like, well,
He
that's
can't
the
help?
easy thing to go towards, right? Well, he's
Yeah.
smaller, but he was good at it last year.
Right.
So it's not like it's something that he's been bad at, for many years. At least since last season, it was a precipitous drop. But I don't think I didn't. I did the math after the first Canucks goal the other night. So up until JT Miller's first goal, 4 of the 5 goals that UC Saros had allowed in the series were screened.
Right.
Now, I'm not sure if the goal that Brock Besser scored counts. I don't think it does. But absolutely, 4 of the first 5 goals he allowed in the series were on shots that were screened. So I think that's something that the Canucks have obviously targeted. They're trying to make it difficult for UC Saros. So Saros' teammates need to do a better job of clearing those guys out in front of the net so that he can see shots, because I know this is not rocket science, but if the goalie can see the shot, he has a much better chance of stopping it. And Saros has not been good at stopping shots he can't see this season, and the Canucks are taking advantage of it.
Yeah, and that's, I'm sure, a point of emphasis for Andrew Burnett as they get ready for this game of cleaning out the areas in front of Saros so he can see. I mean,
Yes.
that's where the defense has to do their job. So I agree with that assessment. Again, it goes back to what I was saying with the team overall, that, look, I don't think they've played poorly. I just think there's another level.
Yes, I would agree with that.
And both teams can say that. And Game 4, usually, like, if you're talking about a team that there's another level for them to go, and we've named the big hitters. We've named Yossi, we've named Forsberg, we've named Saros, that it's like, okay, here's some good things, here's some bad things, but I know there's more. I think today's the day where you get.
Yeah, and I think
Because they know that too. Like, they don't have to sit here and listen to us. They know that they need to do more.
Yeah, and to me, it starts. We talked about this earlier. It starts with Roman Josi. I think that when he is on his AA game, I mean, there's a reason why he's one of the best defensemen in the league. His ability to generate offense from the back end is unrivaled Quinn Hughes is one of the few guys that can do it. You think of.
I mean, 2 of the best defensemen in the National Hockey League are in this series.
Yes. I mean, I think about the defensemen that can generate offense from the back end the way that Roman Josi can. And the 2 that come to mind, I think the only 2 that really stand out are Quinn Hughes and Cale Makar. I mean, you could make an argument for Evan Bouchard in Edmonton, but really I think it's those 3 are the class of the league in terms of generating offense from the back end. And Roman Josi won the Norris Trophy by and large because he was able to do that, and he's going to be a finalist for that award because of his ability to do that. And it just hasn't been there this series. And as I said earlier, Quinn Hughes hasn't been spectacular in this series. He has 4 assists, but I feel like he hasn't made any dazzling plays. He's been steady. But Josi, at least he was getting the puck toward the net as best as he could in Game 3. He had 11 shot attempts, 8 were blocked, 3 hit the net. Of course, you don't want him to have 8 shots blocked, but he was trying. I just think that he needs to help. He needs to help take over a game, and that's what it. When they were winning games at a ridiculous clip in the second half of the regular season, it was because of Roman Josi in part was just carrying the team offensively in terms of tilting the ice in the team's favor when he was on the ice, both in goals and scoring chances and shot attempts. Like, all of those numbers were heavily in the Predators' favor when he was on the ice, and it hasn't really been the case in this series. And I think you need to see more from him first and foremost.
So, I'm going to amend something we talked about earlier, talking about just Bruno make some lineup changes. I don't think you can take Novak out now. It's his birthday. He'll get the birthday goal. The big birthday goal on his, for the playoffs. It's also Jeremy Lozon and Kevin Lankinen's birthday.
Well, you can't screw up 3 people's birthdays, right?
I know. I mean, that's got to be a good omen.
You would think that. Usually, if you're a hockey player, you're good if you're going to have a big game if it's your birthday or your partner just had a baby.
Yeah.
Like if you're
what was it, the leg one hat trick goal assist baby?
I vividly remember Tanner Jeannot having a Gordie Howe hat trick the first game after his child was born.
Yeah, you're right.
Like it's called dad strength.
Yes.
I don't have very much of it. compared to professional athletes. But I feel like if your birthday or you just had a kid, you're in for a good game. So maybe, as you said, that's the good omen for Tommy Novak specifically.
615-737-1025. It's Chase and Big Joe special Sunday edition. Adam in for Big Joe today. We're live at the Hank Williams Jr. Boogie Bar on the rooftop. Come by and see us. They got crafted cocktails, a local flavor. You can taste Nashville with the menu featuring Southern classics with a modern twist. Come by and see us. We're here all day until 3 o'clock, that is, until we head to Bridgestone Arena and get ready for a 4 o'clock puck drop. So come by and say hello. Chase and Big Joe, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Chasing Big Joe, Adam Vingan, we acknowledge him in today for Big Joe, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Special coverage, special Sunday edition of our shows. Stillman and Company coming up next. So looking forward to that. He'll be on 1 to 3. Sean Henry going to join him at 2:30 live here from Hank Williams Jr. Boogie Bar. So looking forward to having the CEO of the Predators on site with Jared Stillman. One thing that we'll get back into the Predators in a second, just kind of your thoughts on some of the other series going on. I fell asleep watching Vegas and Dallas last night. That one's been entertaining.
Yeah, that to me, when I was looking at the series before they started, I just did like this gut feeling. Okay, what's the most watchable of these eight series? And Vegas and Dallas was my number one with a bullet. Like, two great teams, defending Cup champion, best team in the versus the best team in the Western Conference. A lot of star power, no pun intended, on either side of the ice. That was a great game. Wyatt Johnston scored 2 goals for the Stars, including the game winner in overtime. Stars win 3-2, cut that deficit to 2-1. Peter DeBoer had a great line after the game talking about just how great of a player Wyatt Johnston is at such a young age. Like I said, he's 20 years old. Keep in mind, they're in Las Vegas for this game. And DeBoer said he's not old enough to go into the casino and play cards. So that's true. And he's a fabulous young player, led the Stars in goals this year. But, yeah, some interesting series around the league. The Lightning got a big win yesterday. They were on the verge of elimination. They avoided being swept by the Panthers. They won 6-3.
I've enjoyed that series, even though it's 3-1 Florida. I have enjoyed that series, but I feel like the rest of the East has been kind of boring.
Yeah, I mean, you expected the Rangers to have their way with the Capitals, and that's kind of what's been going on. They're up 3-0. I believe Game 4 is today.
Yes, it is after our game.
Yeah, so that series hasn't been too memorable. The Islanders avoided elimination. To me, that's the least watchable series. I just said Stars. Golden Knights was the most watchable entering the postseason. Carolina, New York was the least watchable, which is mostly because of the Islanders, because I just can't.
The good ones have been in the West, man.
Yeah, I think that I've seen the Bruins beat the Maple Leafs in the first round too many times, so I kind of watch that one because it's always kind of fun from afar to watch the Maple Leafs implode and see how everyone reacts to it. So that's what's been going on since the Bruins beat the Maple Leafs last night in Game 4. Colorado, Winnipeg, man. That's been
about heavyweight fights.
Yeah, that first game was 7-6, a very high scoring series. That's been a lot of bad blood there. And you were talking about bad blood with the Canucks and the Predators, right? Well, these teams haven't played each other in the regular season. They hadn't played each other since before Christmas.
Yeah,
they haven't played in the playoffs in 13 years.
Yep.
So I mean, there's probably there's always a little ill will, but you were starting from scratch,
right?
Trying to build up that animosity.
But I feel like it happens naturally, like throughout the course of a series, teams just quit liking each other.
Yeah, absolutely. But the Avalanche and the Jets did not need any reason to hate each other. They played each other enough. They played a couple of times at the end of the regular season, so they've been stuck with each other for the past few weeks. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of bad blood there. And the Oilers are just I like the Kings. I think they're a solid team, but just the Oilers have their number, man. Right? If the Oilers beat the Kings in this first round, it'll be the third year in a row that the Oilers eliminate the Kings in the first round of the playoffs. So, this series, has been the one we're watching closely, has been entertaining. It's been low event. It hasn't been high flying like Colorado and Winnipeg. But, to me, the series, the two series that I've made a point to watch games when I can are the ones that we've talked about: Vegas and Dallas, and Florida and Tampa Bay, just because those teams definitely do not like each other. Yeah, obviously, you've got the in-state rivalry there, and the Stars lost to the Golden Knights in 6 games in the Western Conference Final last year before the Golden Knights went on to win the Stanley Cup. So
Peter DeBoer probably feels some kind of way about it.
Yeah, for sure. But the Stars were absolutely dominant last night. But it still needed overtime, and Wyatt Johnston scored, 20-year-old kid scored that goal, and I don't know what you do when you're in Vegas when you're 20 years old. You go to bed. Go to bed, I guess. call room service. Cirque du Soleil, not the sexy ones that's like rated R. Maybe, well, I guess he could go to that one if he wanted to, but you can't really do a lot in Las Vegas when you're underage. So, but he scored 2 big goals, and he'll take it.
Yeah. You mentioned the Oilers and the Kings. I agree with you because, I think just like Toronto, the Oilers have a ton of pressure on them of, okay, you have all this talent, and here's what you've done with it. So you got to keep moving on. The Kings don't care about all that. I think the Kings are a good team. I think this is another case of, and we can get into the, should they go back to the old way of the playoffs, which I think they should. Like I like the old 8-1, 7-2, and then you reseed. I wish they'd do that because I think we're getting matchups that we want to see, but we don't want to see them in the first round. I mean, you're seeing like Dallas and Vegas, the way that the seeding worked out, those, especially with Vegas and their secret roster that they have, that's one that that's a Western Conference final.
Yes.
That's not first round. Like Florida and Tampa is an Eastern Conference final. Toronto and Boston, that's Eastern Conference, but it is what it is. So that's kind of how it's worked out. But I think the Oilers have that pressure on them that they know they got to win this series. LA is not going to make it easy for them, though.
No, and the Kings are, their bread and butter is playing solid defense and preventing teams from getting up and down the ice, and it's hard to do when you're playing the likes of Connor McDavid and arguably the fastest player in the league. They're the Kings are in an interesting area because it's like how many more playoff runs does Andrei Kopitar and Drew Doughty have, and they've got some key young players. I mean, he's not necessarily young anymore. He is young, but he's not young.
Yeah.
Like Kevin Fiala has bloomed into a really good player for them. It started in Minnesota, but I think he's been even better in Los Angeles. And,
Agreed. Arvidsson still plays a role.
Arvidsson still has a role when he's healthy. He says he struggled with his health this year. Didn't play in a lot of games, but the best part is, well, if the Predators advance in this postseason, they'll play the winner of Edmonton and Los Angeles, and you're probably looking at Edmonton, and we know how the Predators play against the Oilers. It hasn't been pretty for a while, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. But the Florida-Tampa series has been fun, just because it's like Florida's the new kid on the block, right? They made it to the Stanley Cup final last year. They've been little brother to the Lightning for a long time. The Lightning are kind of entering that phase where they're perhaps, that core, that one. A lot of the players are gone. But Steven Stamkos and Victor Hedman, Braden Point, Nikita Kucherov, they're getting older. So it feels like a passing of the torch situation a little bit. But yeah, Lightning. We get another game of that because the Lightning avoided elimination yesterday. So I think that game's Tuesday.
Which one?
Lightning Panthers game 5.
It's tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Well, you got
and it's on ESPN. I gotta be honest. Like I like both. What ESPN and Turner have done, but I get used to everything being on ESPN, and then it shifts to TNT or TBS, and then I got to go back. So I'm kind of getting used to that. Forever it was NBC, and you knew kind of where everything was going to be. But yeah, no, it's tomorrow. So a quick question on this, because we always see this with the first round especially. What coach do you think is on the hot seat? Is Sheldon Keefe on the hot seat?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the funny thing is, I think they gave him a new contract that hasn't even started yet. So they would be firing him before it even started. That's not great. I'm looking at the series that are playing. Yeah, I don't see.
I don't think anybody else.
No, Sheldon Keefe.
I know John Cooper for a minute.
John Cooper will coach as long as John Cooper wants to coach, I think. Jim Montgomery's on the hot seat. Brendan Moore's not. Patrick Wozniak, Rick Bowness isn't, I don't think. Jared Bednar isn't. Peter Laviolette isn't. Spencer Carberry isn't. DeBoer isn't. Cassidy isn't. Yeah. So really, Sheldon Keefe is the one, I think, whose seat is the absolute hottest. It's scorching. If the Maple Leafs lose this series, which they're probably going to do, you can't keep running it back with the same group of players. No. And they were sniping at each other on the bench last night. That was getting a lot of play. Matthews and Marner and Nylander were all kind of bickering with each other on the bench, and that was, Marner threw his gloves off in disgust, and Kelly Rudy called him an 8-year-old child on Hockey Night in Canada, so he got called out on national television. It was a whole thing. Yeah, I think if the Maple Leafs lose, there has to be changes, and the easiest one to do is firing the coach.
Yeah, well, and I think trade Mitch Marner.
Yeah,
I think he's the one. You're not trading Matthews.
No, you're not trading Matthews. You just signed Nylander, and Tavares doesn't have significant trade value unless you're retaining salary and sweetening the deal because he's getting a little old. So yeah, Marner is the one that if they're going to blow up that core four, what they call it up there, they're going to blow up that core four. It's going to be Marner.
I think. Let's see if I can pull the tweet up. I think it was Wyshynski. That maybe he was quote tweeting somebody that basically said, Oh, here we go. A very smart hockey person put this in my head recently, and I think this is the perfect time to float it. To Utah, Mitch Marner. To Toronto, Clayton Keller. Straight up.
That would be interesting. I mean, I think, you know what, like some players, you know, I've never covered Mitch Marner, and he's a really good player, but
Sure.
some players don't do well in the spotlight. You know, I think, you know, Marner would be the star player for the Utah, whatever the heck they're going to be.
Yeah.
And Keller has been a good player for a long time in Arizona. He doesn't get his due because he played in Arizona.
Right.
But I mean, that's interesting. That would be an interesting move. I mean, I could see the benefit for both sides.
Yep. Could be very interesting. We'll get back into the Predators and the Canucks series. Coming up next, he's Adam Vingan in today for Big Joe Dubman. We're live at the Hank Williams Jr. Boogie Bar on the rooftop here at 419 Broadway. It's a great atmosphere. A lot of Preds fans have made their way in here. Jared Stillman is here. He'll take over at 1 o'clock and also talk to Sean Henry at 2:30. Much more ahead. Chasing Big Joe with Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Special Sunday edition. Adam Vingan in today for Big Joe Dubman as we're live at the Hank Williams Jr. Boogie Bar on the rooftop, 419 Broadway, getting ready for game number 4 between the Predators and the Vancouver Canucks at Bridgestone Arena. 4 o'clock puck drop. It's a very beautiful day. So if you're just getting out of church or something, come on downtown, hang out for a little bit, and you're right next to Bridgestone Arena. You can go and get to your seat early. Now, you know, we were talking about some of the game ops stuff, you know, towel waivers, all that. Taylor Lewan tweeted earlier, might need a catfish today, can't say why. Can anyone get me a catfish ASAP? So I don't know if there's something planned there. Could we see J.C. Latham maybe show up, the Titans' first-round pick? Who knows? So something to potentially pay attention to. I get into that stuff, but obviously at the end of the day, I want the Predators to win the game. Not using the phrase must win, using the phrase need to win for this one today. I need to see another level from this team. You mentioned it earlier, Adam. I need to see more Roman Josi. I definitely need to see more Philip Forsberg. Because I'm just going to be honest with you. For a majority of this series, I know he had the big goal in Game 2, and he's had a couple of points. But number 9 has not been number 9. Like, that has been – I've looked at times and I've seen the number 9 jersey, and I'm going, who is that? I need to see Philip Forsberg. I need Forsberg to do Forsberg things today.
Yeah, that goes without saying. Just because think about when you look at Forsberg's playoff performance as a whole. Throughout his career, he's been a solid playoff performer, but it hasn't been the same since the 2018 season. That was the President's Trophy season. So in his past 5 playoff years. So that includes the first 3 games of this series. So since the 2019 series against the Stars, he has 14 points in 23 playoff games. He has 8 goals and 6 assists. For a lot of players, that's a solid line.
Yeah.
Not for Philip Forsberg.
Not after 48 goals.
Not after 48 goals. And by comparison, in his first 4 playoff years, he had 22 goals and 42 points in 55 games.
Yeah.
More in line of what you would expect from Philip Forsberg. So he has not taken over in the postseason the way that we saw early in his career. So he absolutely needs to do that. And as you said, especially after the regular season he had when, he took a step up. There were times where I wasn't sure that, Philip Forsberg was going to be a 40-goal scorer at all, let alone almost a 50-goal scorer. He had a fabulous regular season, and because of that, expectations are heightened, and you need more from him. That goes without saying. It was good to see him get on the board with the goal he scored in Game 2. I think it was important for the team, but especially important for him to score that kind of goal, get that confidence up. But, yeah, it's just that line, too. It feels like his line with Nyquist and O'Reilly, they kind of been around it, but they're not taking over like they did during the regular season. I mean, there was only one forward line in the NHL that was on the ice for more of their team's goals at 5-on-5 than the Predators' top line, and that was the Rangers' line of Panarin, Trocheck, and Lafreniere. So they were the second highest scoring 5-on-5 line in the league during the regular season. And I don't feel like we've seen a little bit of that in this series, but not enough. That line helps carry this team offensively, and if you're not getting it from them, you're going to need to find it from other sources. But yeah, absolutely, Philip Forsberg, big game for him today for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you need it. And the other thing, too, I thought going into this series, because he did something that he hasn't done since, I want to say 2017, played 82 games. Mm-hmm. And that, to me, was a really big deal. I don't know if people really looked at it like I did. I looked at that as a really big deal because I think that, all the accolades that he's gotten this year, he was a 40-goal scorer, a couple years ago with Duchesne. He would have had that much, much more in his career had he played 82 games. But he always got hit with some sort of injury, at points during his career. He didn't have that this year. So I thought you were getting a 90-something point, 48-goal Philip Forsberg who played a full season with a ton of confidence going into this series. And I just feel like I don't know if that confidence has been shaken or if it's just not there. Like something has just seemed very off. And look, I know that he wasn't practicing down the stretch, and so obviously there was something he was playing through, and that probably is still with him, but it didn't seem to slow him down at the end of the season.
No, and I would expect, more, more from him today. We've talked about Roman Josi quite a bit. We've talked about Jussi Saros. The thing we haven't talked about, which quote unquote secondary player is going to be, is going to make his impact felt. We talked about Jason Zucker. Jason Zucker has, I think, had a really good series. I think he's done what they wanted him to do when they traded for him at the deadline. But
Agreed.
We've talked about the potential of Tommy Novak coming out of the lineup. We've talked about Luke Evangelista seemingly taking to the Stanley Cup playoffs quite well for his first time. when we talk about the core players of this team, the guys that have been here for a while, we always mention Yossi, we mention Forsberg, we mention Saros, but one player that we don't talk about a lot that we probably should be. He's not a quote unquote core player, but the guy's been here forever. Is Colton Sissons?
Agreed.
I mean, Colton Sissons.
I call him the glue guy.
Yeah, he's been a part of this team for close to a decade now,
Yeah.
and he's been an important part. We obviously know what he did in Game 6 of the Western Conference Final in 2017, but Colton Sissons has been through the same battles that Forsberg has been through and Yossi has been through. He's one of the guys left that they're in terms of looking back to the days of this team with Johansson and Arvidsson and Fischer, and he's one of the few guys left from that group.
He's one of 3 guys that played for Barry Trotz.
That's crazy to think about. Yeah, he did play for Barry
Yossi,
Trotz.
Forsberg, Sissons.
Yeah, see, that's how far you have to go back. Colton Sissons played for Barry Trotz when he was the coach here, and he hasn't coached here since 2014.
Yeah.
That's how far you have to go back. So I would love to see Colton Sissons step up. I think his line. I think him and Zucker make a good pair. I like the connection that they seem to have. I would love to see Colton Sissons have a big game today.
So would I.
Yeah.
I mean, we remember the Western Conference Final when that was his breakout game, or breakout moment, however you want to put it.
And then he was the top line center in the Stanley Cup Final.
Yeah, he was. So I agree that it's got to be, and it's probably got to be more than one person, but I think that Yossi, as you mentioned, Forsberg, as I mentioned, they have to be a part of the equation. If Yossi and Forsberg don't get to another level, they're not winning the series.
No.
I mean, and maybe you throw Sissons into that too, but I think those two have got to do something more. Otherwise, they're not winning the series. And Saros has to play well.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely. Like, I do think that they need to be better. And, you look at the other side. We talked about this. I think JT Miller, by far, has been the most impactful player on either side of the ice in this series. He was great in Game 1. He factored into both goals for the Canucks in Game 3. Had the goal on the power play, then set up Besser on the power play. He's been all over the place. He is one of 9 players this season to have 100 points. But we don't really hear a lot about him because he's not. I mean, he's not. You think about the other players that also scored 100 points in the NHL this season: Matthews, McDavid, Panarin, Pasternak, McKinnon. He's not in that class.
Yeah.
But he's a really good player, and it has been for a while. And Elias Pettersson has had a rough go of it in the series. He's had a rough go of it now for a little while. It stretches back into the regular season. The fact that they're up in the series and we have yet to see anywhere close to the best from Elias Pettersson might be a little bit concerning if you're a Predators fan, because if he gets his game to where it is, that's a difficult proposition, because he scored, I think, 100 points last season. So he's a really good player. As I mentioned, Quinn Hughes, good but not spectacular. Their top player, I mean, JT Miller has been a difference maker, but Besser scored the other night. But I feel like their top players are they're playing okay, but they're not playing up to their capability, and they're still winning the series. The Predators have the same issue, but they're down in the series. So they need their top players to raise their game too, because if the Canucks' top players beat them to that, then it's going to be an issue.
I know you look at this objectively, as a media member, but looking at it from a fan's point of view, to me, JT Miller is that guy that, you hate him, but if he was on your team, you'd love him.
Oh yeah, I mean,
if Barry Trotz swung a trade for JT Miller over the summer, which I know is not going to happen, but if he did that, I'd be like, oh yes, give me JT Miller. I'm all about that. He's a pissant.
Yes.
When you're playing against him, but he's that guy that you want on your team.
Yeah, absolutely, and he's been in the postseason now. He's early in his career. He was in the playoffs with the Rangers. He played for the Lightning before he played for the Canucks. He didn't win the Stanley Cup with the Lightning. He was gone before then. But yeah, he's a disturber out there. I mean, he ruffles feathers, but the best type. Those are my favorite types of players. Are the guy look, I love watching the skilled guys like Connor McDavid and Nathan McKinnon and Nikita Kucherov, just like any other hockey fan. I love watching those guys. But my favorite players have always been the guys that can do all that and they piss you off too.
Yeah.
They get under your skin. And the Canucks have, they've got a guy like Connor Garland who also likes to do that. He's a good player, but he's not JT Miller. I'm trying to think of like other good examples of that around the NHL, like those top players that.
Well, I'll give you one that Preds fans are probably going to get mad at me about, but one from back in the day. Ryan Kessler was that guy.
Yes,
back in the day.
absolutely. Like
everybody here hates him. And by the way, Vancouver, nice little, they brought him out and his son out and
Yes.
everything. Like, hated him in that series. Hated him when he was with the Ducks, of course. He and Johansson had their battle. But that was the type of guy that, but if he was on your team, like, you want that. Like, that's the kind of, and even at one point in time, maybe Corey Perry, but not so much. Now, Corey's just a dirty player.
I've pulled up a list now. Like Brad Marchand,
Yep.
Matthew Tkachuk,
Yep.
like guys like that get under your skin and they make you so mad if you're rooting against them. But they're so talented. They put up a ton of points. Brad Marchand has 8 points in 4 games for the Bruins in this series. Like that. I mean, that's what Marchand is capable of doing. And we saw what Tkachuk did. He completely energized the Florida Panthers last season. He was fabulous in the playoffs. JT Miller is in that same mold.
Yeah.
He's made it, the points might not be there like it is, like I just mentioned for Marchand in that series, but he's making an impact on the ice. The Canucks are dominating play when he's on the ice, and that's what you need. So you need the Predators players, the top players, to reach that level, because if Miller continues to play like this and Pettersson joins him and Hughes joins him, the Predators are in trouble.
Indeed they are. He is Adam Vingan. I'm Chase McCabe. We will come back and wrap up our portion, but we're nowhere near done. Jared Stillman is ready to go with a special Sunday edition of Stillman & Company coming your way at 1 o'clock. If you got any final thoughts for us, 615-737-1025. Questions for Adam, you can call, you can text. But give our final thoughts on Game 4. Coming up next, Chase and Big Joe. Adam Vingan in today, live at Hank Williams Jr. Boogie Bar on the Rooftop, 419 Broadway, 1025, 1063 The Game.
Andrew, in terms of process and what you might be able to carry over to next game, did you like what you saw in the neutral zone, and how might that impact what you do next game?
I liked what we did pretty much in all three zones. I could get nitpicky in the offensive zone. I think for us, it starts a lot in how we get out of our zone. And I think when we're at our best, we get out fast from our zone to their zone quick, and then we pressure them, and then we kind of get into a short ice game. And that's when we're at our best. I'm sure Vancouver, when I watch them, that reminds me a lot of them. But it starts in the D zone. I thought our sticks were much better. I thought we were quicker to close. I thought we broke the puck out a little quicker, and then we were able to stretch things out and kind of get into our game.
Chasing Big Joe, Adam Vingan alongside here at Hank Williams Jr. Boogie Bar up on the rooftop. That was Andrew Burnett after the loss the other night. Adam, the best in the world, hanging out with us, and always appreciate that. So what has kind of been he was talking about the neutral zone, they're playing the neutral zone. What's kind of been your observation of their play in the neutral zone?
I feel like the Canucks have done a good job of cutting them off at the pass and making it difficult for them to get through with speed and carry the puck into the zone, which is, obviously a big part of their success and most teams' success when they want to get out and attack on the rush. So I do think that's an adjustment that needs to be made. One thing that I did like about the Predators, this is not in the neutral zone, but one thing I did like about the Predators in game number 3 is that I thought they were better at generating scoring chances off the cycle. Thought they had more opportunities that way than they did in the first 2 games, particularly at 5-on-5. And yeah, I think, this series, like we said this at the top of the show, the way the series has gone, you can look at the scores, 4-1, 4-2, was it 4-2, 4-1, 2-1.
Yeah.
You look at the score, I heard John Cooper talk about this with the series in Florida. It's not like the scoreboard is heavily tilted in one, like even though the Panthers were up 3-0. It's not like the scoreboard was heavily tilted in the Panthers' favor. And that's what it's been like in this series too. Although it's 2-1 Vancouver, they haven't been kicking the Predators' butt for 3 games and they anything like that. So I really do think that this series is still still can go either way.
Predators win.
Yep. So game 5 Tuesday. Game 6, if necessary, would be Friday back here in Nashville. So
Tuesday is another 9:00 start, and everybody that complains about that, look at a map. it's the West Coast, so of course it's going to be a 9:00 start.
Yes, but the fact that Vancouver's on the Pacific Coast actually makes it a little bit better. Like it's not when it's 2 Central teams playing each other.
Right, and
that's when you get the 8:30s.
Yeah, and then I get griping about that. But, if it's West Coast, then okay, you're going to have a late night if you're watching back here. So that's just kind of a part of it. But we've hit on a lot of different things today. In your mind, what do the Predators need to do to win Game 4?
They need to not get as many shots blocked. Which look, and
quality shots to the net.
Right. Well, the Predators did a good job of blocking shots in Game 2. The Canucks did a great job of blocking shots in Game 3. The Predators, as I said to you at the top of the show, if you hold your opponent to 7 5-on-5 shots in a game, you should probably win the game.
Yep.
But they weren't able to get their shots through enough to Casey DeSmith. They had plenty, but I feel like they could be more dangerous. I think it's, as I've said multiple times already, I think one key is you got to get you got to get a goal early, but you got to get like a fluky goal early. Think about the goal at the start of Game 2. I think you need that kind of goal where perhaps it rattles Casey DeSmith a little bit.
Yep.
Get the crowd into
get
it.
in his head.
Yeah, that's what that to me was a big part of the win in Game 2 was getting that early goal, putting some doubt. Putting some doubt in the minds of the Canucks and their fans, and I think that's what they need to do again. The Predators need to do again today. So, those would be my 2 keys. But yeah, a greasy type goal, maybe from a guy like talked about Colton Sissons. He scores plenty of those. Maybe a goal from him in that kind of way can get this Predators game going.
Andrew Burnett will speak in less than an hour, so maybe we'll get, even though I don't know if he's going to tell us, but maybe we'll get more thoughts on the lineup We know Spencer Stasny will be out. He's week to week with an upper body injury.
You still think you would put you're favoring Fabro in the situation, going in the lineup.
I'm not. I'd put Barry in. If
Okay.
it's me making the decision, I'm putting Tyson Barry in because of what we talked about earlier, because of power play.
Mm-hmm.
And the power play is struggling. He can help the power play. What I think is going to happen is they'll put Fabro in.
Probably.
That's probably what'll happen.
Yeah, that'll probably be what happens. But yeah, if you're looking to get the power play going, that's the issue though. Is you don't want Barry to be in the lineup just for the power play. You do need him to play at even strength
Sure.
too. But yeah, I mean, my gut tells me it's probably going to be Fabro in the lineup. But yeah, I mean, if you're looking for a spark on the power play, I can see why you would want to put Barry in.
Do you see any forward changes? I'm going to say no.
I'm going to say yes. I'm going to go out on a limb. It's not really a limb, but I'm going to go out on a small twig and say that Cody Glass enters the lineup in place of Tommy Novak.
So Novak out, Glass.
That's just a guess.
I wouldn't
Complete guess.
hate that.
Complete guess.
I don't know. I just kind of have a hunch that, like, again, it's what we talk about of, is he overthinking it? Is he chasing the lineup? You don't want to get into that.
No.
But, again, it wouldn't surprise me, but I'm going to say no. I'm going to say I want Barry. It'll be Fabro, and then no forward changes.
Okay.
And then Vancouver probably rolls out what they've been rolling out too.
Yeah, I
So-
don't see any changes on Vancouver side at all,
Yeah, but
unless there's like an injury or an illness or that we're not expecting. But
I'll make another prediction. Maybe it's a bold prediction. Maybe it's not. I do think Philip Forsberg scores.
okay.
I think Forsberg. Nobody has to give him the message. He knows. Same with the OC. Yeah, I think the big guns play like the big guns today. Predators win. I think this is a 4-2 with an empty netter at the end. So it's 3-2 going late in the third. Maybe they score an empty netter 4-2.
Okay.
So tied up at 2, going back to Vancouver. That's what I think happens.
All right. Well, we'll see soon enough.
Do you feel like that?
I think that's a reasonable prediction. I mean, my prediction was they were going to win. I was on with Caroline and Derek, between games 2 and 3, and my prediction was they were going to win 3-2 in overtime on a goal from Ryan McDonough. I was trying to be as off the wall as I possibly could. So this is at least more in line with what could actually happen.
Yeah. So we will see. That is going to do it for our portion, but don't you go anywhere because Jared Stillman is ready. He's got all his contraptions set up, ready to go and talk Preds for 2 hours with you. I know it's been building since Friday night, so he's got to get it out. He's also probably got some draft frustrations that may help some of this along.
It might be best for J.C. Latham not to be at the game. If Jared's going to be at. That's all. That's all I'm saying.
Maybe.
J.C., if you're listening, maybe skip. maybe sit this one out.
Yeah, or Rand Carthon.
I'm not going to tell. I can tell J.C. Latham what to do from afar because I would never say it to his face.
I haven't told Jared this, but actually it's Jared Stillman and Rand Carthon waving the towel today together.
Oh.
So we'll see how that goes.
Will there be blood on that towel at the end of that? I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know. It could be interesting. But again, come by Hank Williams Jr. Boogie Bar on the rooftop, 419 Broadway. It's a fantastic place overlooking Broadway, and it's right next to Bridgestone Arena. So stop in here, hang out for a little bit, and then head on over for the game. Jared has it until 3 o'clock. Then Max Hers will take over with the pregame show. And then, of course, puck drop just after 4. For Adam Vengen, I'm Chase McCabe. Have a great rest of your day. Stick around. Stillman & Company is next on 102.5, 106.3.